You
I'm
and
ready.
I had a little bit of a back and forth that was inspired by a pretty epic rant by Tim
I'd say
Legler
so.
on it's on that same episode of the All NBA podcast where you talked about he wanted Jokic to play in that next game, I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
About, what happens when a team is trying to basically intentionally try to get certain matchups in the playoffs. And I should specify that I mean potentially losing games on purpose to do so.
Yeah.
So our debate here is a more specific question, but we can open it up more broadly. But should the Nuggets intentionally, if they're in the position to, throw games at the end of the season to try to avoid the Minnesota Timberwolves?
When you
Now,
when you put it like that, yes.
well, hang on. I wanna lay out a
Okay.
couple of
Okay.
specifics, and then I'll let you make your case. So
Wax poetic. Okay. Thank you.
I'll
Yeah.
absolutely. So Adam Maris threw that idea out there before Legler went on his epic rant, and I just have a couple of quotes from Legler here. He said, "quote If you're a 2 or a 3, he's referring to seeding here, worried about a 6, 7, or 8, you are already psychologically screwed." Then he went on to say, if he was a head coach, he encountered one of his assistant coaches muttering about matchups, then he would fire them. And that went on for like 3 minutes, right? It's a great
Hilarious.
post.
Hilarious.
I did not expect that to get as much traction as it did. I got some
Yeah.
ESPN writers liking it and things like that too. So that was fun. I'd
You're
like to.
pumping up their guy. You were
Yeah, it's true.
you were in
It's their
favor of
guy.
it. You liked it, right?
I did, and
Yeah.
we'll talk about it. But let me
Hmm.
preface this by saying first, this may not even be an option when it comes to the end of the season. There is currently one game separating the 2, 3, and 4 seed, and then the Grizz are only one game behind them at 5 right now.
Hmm.
There's one game separating the 6, 7, and 8 seeds, and I believe the Timberwolves are the ones that currently sit in the 8 seed right now. Before
Yeah.
you wax poetic, trying to manipulate standings at this point in the season, where there's still 10 games left, we have no idea what it's gonna look like with 3, 4, 5 games left in the season. It's a bit of a dangerous game, right?
It is. Yep. I agree.
So my first question to you, and you can go on from here. You've said that it is, quote, important to have a preferred matchup. Can you elaborate on what you mean by that and then how you
Yeah.
feel about this topic more broadly?
Part of this is like just this psychological preference. And I think one thing that bothers me about sports fans is this concept of like eternal optimism and like false positivity, right? And it goes back to this sports culture of like, yes, we can, like, believe in yourselves, like we can do it, like don't be scared of anything, don't be scared of any moment. Like if you are mentally strong enough, like that's all that matters. And like good for you if you like have a strong mentality and you're impossible to break and like you're morally superior because you are able to be positive. Like thumbs up. Like let me just give you a quick scenario, okay? When I say it's important to have a preferred matchup, so they play Memphis and Houston to close the season. Denver does, right? If they are the 2 seed going into these games, and Minnesota is clearly locked into that 7 seed. So just this particular scenario.
And
And
remember, the play-in still happens, so they might not.
okay, but
So,
like
but there's like a 50% chance that
there's a good chance you're going to
yeah.
play Minnesota. I mean, and then let's say Golden State is the 6th seed. Can we sit here and have an honest conversation and say Denver would not prefer to play Golden State over Minnesota? I don't know. Like if we asked any Nuggets fan, do you think out of 10, how many would say I would rather play Minnesota than Golden State? Because we've lost to
Nobody.
Minnesota 3 times
Well,
this year.
except
2 of them blowouts.
RX Smart, who says that the Timberwolves are his preferred match.
Shout out to RX Mart and his positivity. Um, he's one of the positive guys. Again, good for you. Thumbs up. I like to deal with the facts, and the facts tell us Minnesota has owned Denver. They knocked you out of the playoffs last year. And if you are too prideful to admit that that's a bad matchup, and you're going to go into those games and be like, we want it. We want the smoke. Like, I don't think that's the smart decision. Now, we can debate on how you want to manipulate the standings, because it's probably a bad look going into those last two games and just sitting your guys saying, we're not even going to try to win these games. And like, you're going to obviously fall to the 3 seed. So you can debate on how you want to go about that. They might be thinking ahead of that right now. They might be trying to get out of that 2-3 seed right now because they don't like that matchup with Minnesota. Like, I don't think that's out of the realm of
I mean,
possibility.
Minnesota could
I
end up in
really don't.
6 is the other thing. So you don't want to lock yourself into.
So you're right. And like, I don't even think they'll have the luxury to be able to manipulate their seedings at the end of the day, because I don't think they're playing good enough basketball. I think if they're lucky, they end up in the 3 seed at the end of the season, because they still have a lot of tough games on the schedule. But like, my point is, like, there are pretty inarguable facts that tell you, like, Golden State is a better matchup. Like, we would prefer to play Golden State in a playoff series. We would not prefer to play Minnesota. And so in the NBA, like, it is a chess match, right? You want to try and take advantage of every possible thing that you can on your way to winning a championship. And so if that means losing a game and falling to the 3 seed to get a better matchup in the first round, like, I think that's the smart move personally. So like, I can see the other side, but I stand pretty firmly on the fact that, like, you want to find the best matchup that you can.
If they do intentionally tank to get a preferred matchup in round 1, what is the ultimate goal of that season? Is it still a title? Is it just to make the second round? Do you consider things like, well, who would our round 2 opponent be?
I think so.
Like,
Yeah, I
let's
think so.
say it's I don't know who's the second seed in this scenario where Denver falls to 3. Is it the Lakers?
It might be. It
And
might
then
be the
you end up
Lakers.
probably in a series with them where they have home court advantage.
Yeah. Yeah, and like, that's important probably to consider as well. But like, again, you're dealing with the facts presented in front of you. You're not just saying,
No,
just
sure.
be
That's
positive.
why I'm
Like,
asking then. It's
like,
like, so we're
so yeah.
talking, there's a lot of emphasis on that first round when
Well,
let's
it's a
say
good
that you
point.
don't
It's a good
have the
point.
opportunity to, because of the way that the tiebreakers are working out, losing those like last 2 games or even one of them at the end of the season might not drop you to second, it might, or third, it might drop you to 4th or even
It
5th,
might drop you to 5th. Yeah.
which would mean that even you might get a favorable matchup in the first round, but then in the second round you're facing OKC, the best team in the conference, right then and there.
Yeah, but like, do we prefer LA over Oklahoma City at this point?
I don't know. Do we?
I think there's an argument there. I don't know if the answer is
Okay.
yes, but I think there's an argument.
Now,
Um,
generally speaking, though, would you entertain an argument that the best path to a title generally involves putting off facing the best team in the conference for as long as possible? That's usually the point of trying to get as high a seed as
generally, yes.
possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. But I also think that best team depends on your matchups, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think Denver had really, really good playoff matchups in 2023. They were facing the
I
Minnesota
don't think
team.
there were bad ones in 2023, to be completely
Yeah,
honest.
they were. You're right. I think they probably win that no matter who they play. But um, they were facing a young Minnesota team. They were facing a Phoenix
Injured
team who
too,
had.
right? And
Yeah,
Nas Reed and Jaden McDaniels made a big
that's right.
impact in the series the very next year.
Was Nas? Yeah, Nas Reed was out that series, wasn't
Yeah.
he? So then you play the Lakers, who had half a season together and still had, they didn't have a lot of reps together. Like,
And then
those were
also
good. Those were good
actually
matchups.
stunk,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
we saw the
And then
following year
they weren't
as
actually
they
very
were a
good.
play-in team again.
So, um, last year, if you avoid Minnesota in that second round, who's who's to tell what happens with Denver in the playoffs? I don't think you knew going in that was a terrible matchup, and you know, it might bite you in the butt. You might think Houston's a good matchup come playoff time, and they kick our butts. Like that's
I mean, the
wholly
Lakers
possible.
almost looked like a bad matchup for us in that first round just because of how poorly we were
Yeah,
playing, right?
yeah. I think yeah, for
It
sure.
was just like we overwhelmed them talent-wise. Like we were just the better team, but
Right.
it's not like most of the time our best players were not like shining in that series because of how banged up and worn down everybody was.
Yeah. But you know, I think playing Memphis, if you get Memphis in the second round, like, and you can find a way to get Golden State and then Memphis, like you're gonna want to try and get that if you can, if you have any control over it. Um, I just think there are certain teams that Denver feels more confident playing against, and this isn't even for Denver. I think this goes for every team. I think it goes for LA may just feel like they're better than everyone else, and they would be great if Denver felt like that. I don't do. Can they say that they are? And maybe that's what Tim is talking about. Like maybe they have already lost because they know that they have mismatches that they don't want to play in the first round. That might be true, you know. So, but at this point, with this team being realistic, there are certain matchups they want to avoid, for sure, as
So
long as they
yeah,
can.
when you know talking about that, like the knowledge of it, you did say online, you made it clear that quote, it's not something you speak about out loud, but it's something that should be understood. And I want
Mhm.
to know who you meant would have that understanding.
I don't think players would dare say it out loud. I don't think they would dare say it. But I do think coaches could probably talk about it behind the scenes in a strategic meeting together, saying, "Hey, this is probably the best case for us going forward." If that means you've already lost, I mean, Tim Legler's been in the NBA locker room for, he was there for over a decade, and he understands how the dynamics work. Maybe, um, but if I'm a coach, I'm talking about matchups. That's not a conversation I'm just not going to have, right? So
Well, yeah,
I
you're going to
think,
talk about matchups because you're going to be game planning for everybody, and you're going to be talking about like, man, like this SOB just gives us problems all the
yeah,
time for this or that
100%.
reason. So they're going to be, discussing the intricacies of those things for sure. I guess my response to that about the, players wouldn't dare say it out loud, but if you're talking about uh
I'm not saying
the
they shouldn't,
players.
but they
No, no, no,
won't.
no, no. But right, they won't, and I
They're
don't
too
think they should
prideful.
either. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, I think you kind of already said it, but they already know if we're talking about whether players are going to be playing or sitting for certain games at the end of the season. One of the examples here, because I had a lot of people kind of quote tweeting it with their past experiences with such things with their teams, right?
Mhm.
And one of the examples that always like really stands out to me, it was just last year where the Cleveland Cavaliers, they were in a position in game 82 to secure the second seed, which meant they don't see the Celtics potentially until the Eastern Conference Finals, right? And in the fourth quarter of that game, they're leading against the Hornets, and then JB Bickerstaff sits all the starters with them up, and then the Hornets end up taking it at the end, and they like tank away like a double-digit lead.
Mhm.
And it was to try to get a preferred matchup in that first round against the Orlando Magic in particular.
Mhm.
So they dropped down to the 4 seed.
Mhm.
Uh, they won that series against the Magic, but it took 7 games. And
Mhm.
Jarrett Allen got injured over the course of that series. I think he got injured late in game 5. It was either game 5 or 6 of that series. And by doing so, they intentionally end up putting themselves in Boston's bracket, play them in round 2, and they got they got gentlemen swept, they got
Yeah.
shellacked, wiped the floor with them.
Mhm.
Boston was very comfortable in that series, right?
Mhm.
But Cleveland could have theoretically put themselves in a position to, potentially make the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since LeBron got there. Uh, and actually, that series win against, or since LeBron left, I should say. That series win against Orlando was the first series win that they'd had since LeBron left. So maybe that was more, important to them.
Yeah.
But that was the other thing is like you had like let's see the Orlando Magic this year. Like they struggled to score. That was a really ugly series from both teams. But
Yeah.
I do think that the Orlando Magic ended up having a bigger chip on their shoulder playing in that series.
Sure.
And they're this like young athletic team that's like, what? Like, why are they trying to play us?
Yeah.
On like they're dropping from like giving up the second seed on purpose to try and play us. Like, I think that they did, take that personally. And
Yeah.
I do think that it drove part of, that why that series went so long. And so, I do think it's a really bad bulletin board material for your first round opponent. And we've seen
You're right.
Denver struggle
You're
with these
right.
young athletic teams. And you don't want to, if your goal is at least to make it past the first round, like you still don't want to have an extended series. Right. And it's like bad karma. But the other thing
It
that I
upsets
wanted
the basketball gods. Like I can see that perspective for sure. Yeah.
So the other sort of caveat here is like, God forbid the plan falls through. Like, let's say you sit guys the last two games and then the bench ekes it out anyway, because like Houston and Memphis just maybe they're gassed and they're sitting their guys too. They're like happy with where they are in the standings, let's say. Maybe they want Golden State too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
And then you end up not being able to get your preferred matchup. In fact, you get the worst matchup imaginable. And then everybody has kind of known, whether out loud or subconsciously, about this plan this whole time, and you get the team you're trying to avoid. Doesn't that mean that like the psychological edge that team has over you is even bigger? And maybe a series that could have gone 6 or even 7 is now 4 or 5.
So, and I think that's why it's important. Like you can debate on how you want to do it. Like I think the way JB Bickerstaff did it so transparently, like obviously we're tanking to play you guys. Like that's probably not a very smart approach, right?
It probably didn't give his incredibly young team a ton of confidence either.
I know, right? And so maybe you have to figure that out, in advance. And it's impossible to actually control at the end of the day. Like you're not really able to pick your matchups unless you transparently tank the last game of the season. And I disagree with that approach. I think you're showing your cards way too much. You got to keep them close to you. But what I'm saying is these conversations are absolutely happening in every single locker room. Hey, do we like this matchup? Like, what do we think about this matchup? And like, I think the way you actually go about trying to manipulate the matchups is tricky. Like, and I think there's different ways you can do it. You can sit guys now. You can drop to 4 or 5, and it's going to be harder to get that 2 seed, but you're more comfortable in that 4 or 5 seed anyways, and you're okay if you stay there. Like that could, who knows? Maybe that's what Denver's doing right now. It's not super transparent though. It's not like Minnesota's like, oh, they're doing this not to play us, Whereas if you tank it, I don't think
Minnesota's thinking about Denver right now. They're just trying to get out of the play.
What in the world? Yeah, we could talk about them for a little bit.
That Pelicans loss for sure.
Unbelievably bad loss. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that's kind of my stance on it. Like this conversation's happening. Like stop with this like old school mentality, like that you have to be mentally tough and never give an inch to your opponent. Like strategy is important in the game of basketball, and you have to think about that. And I just think this is just one of the strategies that you have to consider when going into the playoffs. And it goes for every round. Like Denver's goal isn't to win the first round. So if they play Minnesota, they'll be ready to play Minnesota, but it's not their preference. It's not their preference at the end of the day.
So let's talk about a couple of other, sort of miscellaneous aspects of this. Now, generally speaking, the reason that you want to get a high seed is well, to avoid the
Mhm.
better teams, but also to try to get home court advantage. And I do think that that's important. And a lot of people focus up on the like, well, if you end up having to play a game 7, you want to be able to play it at home. Denver does not have a great history with home game 7s. Um,
Terrible history. Yeah.
but I do think that an underrated aspect or an under discussed aspect of home court advantage is getting to play the first 2 games of the series at home. Now, the Nuggets have not been as good at home this year as they have been in years prior, and they're not as good at home as most of the other, playoff teams in the conference. They have the 6th best home record in the conference.
That is crazy.
I know. Will and I had a whole segment at the beginning of the year about the schedule that's like, is altitude actually an underrated advantage? Has the pendulum swung back around? Turns out Matt Moore was right. He's
So
like, nope,
wild.
it actually gets overrated. And we saw that this year. Like, they have
Yeah.
not, enjoyed the benefits of the 5280. I'm going to blame the jerseys, personally. But
Those first
how...
jerseys, man. Yeah.
So on top of that, though, Denver has the 2nd best road record in the conference. They're actually on pace to have a slightly better road record this year than last year. So that's how they've kind of been able to
road record last year, right?
say that again. Yeah, it was a franchise record, road record, and they're probably going to break it again or at least match it this year. How confident are you in Denver's ability to go on the road for multiple series? Because they, whether they want to or not, could end up in the 5th seed just because of tiebreaker scenarios right now. We're not really in a great place with anybody but Memphis. Like, the Lakers now own the tiebreaker over us because they're going to win their division. And the Rockets are currently up on us. We're going to see how, those other games go this season. And Memphis, we're currently tied with, I think, 1 game left at the end of the season. So
we haven't seen Denver not have home court advantage in a playoff series since Phoenix 2022, I believe. So that was the last time Denver did not have home court advantage, and they
that was 21. In 22,
sorry,
that was the
Golden State.
It's the Golden State. Yeah.
You're right. And obviously they did not fare well in that series. Golden State was a much better team than them, like, clearly. Here's the thing about the team this year, though. This team is so weird and unpredictable, and they're such a resilient team. I would not be surprised to see them fare really well in a series that starts on the road, because it's finally like that they don't have this pressure like they would have. And I think they felt it last year, like, against Minnesota. They played so much tighter at home than they did on the road in all 3 out of the 4 home games that they played in that series. They lost 3 home games that series, which
what
is
a weird series.
What a
that
weird
was.
series. What a weird thing. And
even in that game 5, everybody but Jokic was really tight. Like, he put the team on his back in that game 5. It was one of his best games ever, probably his best playoff game ever.
And, like, think about the home games they've played on national TV this year. Like, they've not played well.
Don't get me started on this team's ESPN record. It's not good.
ESPN in particular.
I think they're 2-6 now on ESPN, and I think they're 2-1 on TNT though.
They like playing on TNT. It's true.
Yeah.
They really, Jokic especially loves playing on TNT. But
because he'll get Shaq on the mic at the end of the game.
Right. I just think I'm totally okay with this team playing on the road, because they haven't shown that even playing at home is a huge advantage for them. And they're weird. They're a weird team. They do weird things. They do unexpected things. And like, they could totally go up 2-0 on the road and then come back tied 2-2. Like, that's just not out of the realm of.
Yeah.
And, like, they played really well in Oklahoma City, which is a really tough environment to play in. They have played well in a lot of those games. I mean, they didn't play well last night against the Lakers, who have a great home record.
I was watching that game, and I literally forgot that it was in LA until after the game. I didn't even realize it. Because, like, I don't know. I just expect the Nuggets to play like that at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It felt like they were playing at home. So just weird stuff all around there.
I will say on the playing tighter or less pressure thing, it is still the case with this team that the role players, like, I don't know if you could say they play better at home. Their home record is still better than their road record. Like, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
But Christian in particular shoots way better at home than on the road. He's shooting like
Interesting.
59% from the field and 43% from three at home, 34% from three on the road, and just 55% on the road. So he's just like he just finishes everything at the rim regardless of anything going on. But the
Yeah.
3-point shooting, there's a pretty big gap there. So that's definitely something to consider.
Yeah,
The
that's interesting.
the home record isn't that much better than the road record, but it is better. It's 23
Yeah.
and 11 versus 21 and 15 on the road.
There was a point in time where this team won. I believe it was, and I might have to fact check this, but they won when the starting five of KCP and was there. They
Or
won
even just the core four. They, like,
38 games in
Yeah.
a row. 38 at
Yeah.
home when they were healthy, when they were fully healthy. That is an insane number, and they are so not invincible at home anymore in any way. So
Yeah.
it's just a really really weird turnaround in development, and it's pretty concerning. I think come playoff time, because that was a big advantage for them. Like they
Yeah.
had that swagger and confidence, and it just doesn't feel like they have that same thing anymore. You know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. So the last question that I have on this topic is, as a Nuggets fan,
Hmm.
how would you feel if Denver lost in round one in 7 games to the Memphis Grizzlies?
How would I feel?
Yeah.
Uh, I would feel like it was time to blow it up if that happened.
That's a
Yeah.
blow it up kind of loss for sure.
It's a blow it up loss.
I'm really curious what would have happened if Orlando hadn't blown their 20-point lead on the Cleveland Cavaliers in game 7 last year. If Franz Wagner hadn't gone, what was it, like 3 of 19 from the floor or something like that in that game. What the Cavs would have done, if anything, differently. Like, would Donovan have extended? Would they have ended up trading Darius? Would they have traded one of the bigs, probably Jared Allen, or just not extended him? I think that is one of the more, like, that example, as I was kind of going through these, like, well, that ended up being, you know, some bad karma for that year, but obviously the Cavs have bounced back in a huge way this year with their new coach.
Yeah.
That example rings it's like a little too close to home for, just based on the way the season has gone with all the injuries. Everything's stilted. They're not quite as good when everybody is healthy.
That's
like,
not out of the
things are
realm of
not,
possibility. It's not.
things are not quite fitting.
If you told me that happened, I don't think I could honestly say I would be like totally shocked. Like a first round exit is not out of the realm of possibility for this team, even with Jokic. I mean, I know it's crazy to say that, but they've shown like they are what they are this year, and what they are is a really hard team to understand. And sometimes they look really really good, and sometimes they look abysmal. Yeah, like, just to put it lightly. Like, so it's you know, my expectations are very tempered going into this playoffs this year. I think last year was so hard because expectations were sky high. They had their, you know, I was really confident that they could get back to the finals last year. This year, I'm back to like, hey, if they get to the Western Conference Finals, that's kind of a win, you know, for this team, which is a bummer. It's definitely a bummer.
Yeah. It's different after they win a title, right?
Yeah, it is different. I mean, that was a great moment, and it's something you can, again, one, like those small moments that you can remember and lean back on, right? That's why there's that still that small bit of confidence that they maybe can get it done, because they've done it before, but
if only they could play defense. Well, thank you so much for giving us all of this time on the show. We really appreciate it. This was a really fun conversation. Is there anything that you want to tell the audience about where they can find you and your thoughts online, or any of the other content that you produce?
I mean, you might know my Twitter page is just Sport Shorts at Denver Shorts. I tweet. I live tweet. If you like live tweeters, they're pretty unfiltered sometimes. I delete tweets often. So if you like stats and just like following the Nuggets and all that, go follow me there. I have a very new podcast. It's just the Sports Shorts podcast. You can go. We do video podcasts on YouTube. We also you can go listen to it on Spotify as well. I think those are the only ones we have it on as of now. And they're just fun conversations. They're not. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We're emotional Nuggets fans, and we like to talk about the Nuggets. So you can go check that out. But yeah, that's about it for me. That's nothing crazy. But it's been awesome to be on this show. I've watched a lot of your guys' episodes, and I think you guys are trailblazers in this like new media Nuggets space.
I don't know about that.
No, I really do. I want to give you guys your props because I think you guys have had a really positive influence in helping others to kind of come out of their shell and talk about the Nuggets and share their thoughts. And I think you guys have definitely inspired me. So appreciate all that you guys do.
I appreciate that. You hear that, you guys? That's why you should help us grow the channel by remembering to click the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Subscribe now, hit the button, and hit that notification bell. You can also leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, or anywhere you get your podcasts. We have all of our social links in the description, TikTok and Instagram. And check out our clip channel as well. I should probably post some more clips there often. But, always remember that winning is fun and losing sucks, especially to the Lakers, because those fans are just so annoying since they've merged with Luka Doncic stance.
Yes, it's a nightmare. Absolute nightmare.